It is the 200 level, Mike Carpenter in the basement studio, as we are 2 days away, or less than 2 days away, from Illinois tipping off in the NCAA tournament. And hey, no pressure, right? I will get to the NCAA tournament. It is sort of the biggest deal in college sports, and, well, at least for us around these parts, where we're not a football school, we're a basketball school. But I think for a lot of people, this is their favorite time of year. For me, it is one of my favorite times of the year. But as an Illini fan, there hasn't always been that success that is commensurate with this being one of my favorite times of the year. I've grown accustomed to Illinois not making runs. We will get to that. But what I don't want to gloss over, and what I don't want to just push aside and say, ho-hum, they won a Big Ten tournament title. And in my life, I've seen 4 of those. Okay, so it started, I believe, in 1997 or 98 was the first Big Ten tournament up in Chicago. I think we lost to Purdue on a Saturday. And this is me really digging deep here. Nerd alert, I won the citywide spelling bee in Urbana when I was in 6th grade. You're thinking, way to go, Poindexter. So I won the citywide spelling bee in 6th grade, or 5th grade, and took it all the way to the regional, which used to air on the local NBC affiliate with Keith Page. If you remember Keith Page, the meteorologist, he would host it. I believe it was on that Saturday in early March, and I got 6th place out of 8. I lost on the word permeate, I believe, and went to Fazoli's afterwards for celebratory lunch. And later that day, I was sick with something like a fever. Illinois played Purdue and lost one of their 9 games to Brian Cardinal. I think that was the first Big Ten tournament. It was weird. It was new. And then, beginning in 1999, the very next year, Illinois owned the Big Ten tournament. They made it to Sunday in 1999, lost to Michigan State. That was the magical run with the 11th seed. In 2000, I believe they made it again to Sunday, but they lost to Michigan State again, the eventual national champion Michigan State team. In 2001, they made it to Saturday, but lost to Indiana. I remember that Sunday waking up after losing in the semifinals to Indiana thinking, does this team still get the number 1 seed? That was Bill Self's first year. They did get the 1 seed, but a little bit nerve-wracking in the pre-bracketology age. 2002, boy, did we get to the final and lose to Indiana? But 2003, finally, after making it at least to a semifinal or final in basically every Big Ten tournament, Illinois won it. That was Bill Self's final year. It was Brian Cook and Sean Harrington's senior year. And that was for a team that had just missed out on a Big Ten title when they lost at Wisconsin about a week or a week and a half before that. Devin Harris hit some free throws late. Crushing loss. But that meant something because you still had a banner. And then in 2004, you made a run to the final, I think. 2005, you won it. You made a run to the final in 2007, I think, with 2008 with one of Bruce Weber's weaker teams. Lost to Wisconsin on that Sunday. You won it in 2021 after feeling like you kind of got screwed over in that Big Ten race with Michigan and the COVID games that were lost. And here we are in 2024, okay? However many Big Ten tournaments there have been, if it started in 1998, I guess we're looking at about 26 now. And you've won 4 of them. Now, I don't know who's got the most. I didn't look this up. I'd assume Michigan State, maybe Ohio State. They've been in a lot of them as well. 4 is nothing to sneeze at. And it's a banner, and you get to hang it. It's a tangible thing that this team has won that we will remember them by. And not only that, but the weekend itself was fantastic. Think about these 3 games, starting with Friday. And remember where you are, if you can, with each of these games. On Friday, late afternoon, early evening, right? 5:30 tip. Ohio State and you were going back and forth. You have a 2-point lead at half, but then they take a 10-point lead early in that second half. It felt lifeless. It felt like something wasn't right. And I remember Isaac and I looking at each other. Existential dread starts creeping in, and then somehow Illinois makes a comeback. To be honest, kind of a blur, but they get the job done thanks to Terrence Shannon and not much else from other people, to be honest. And they get a win against an Ohio State team that was red hot, a team that probably would have been in the NCAA tournament had they gotten that one against Illinois. So you burst a bubble, you move on to Saturday. I wake up Saturday feeling unencumbered. I feel like, you know what? We knocked the dust off. We're going to play much better today. Wrong. You played your worst half of the season in the first half against a red-hot Nebraska team. That continued into the first 2 minutes of the second half. Brad Underwood calls a timeout, doesn't even yell at the guys. And then from that point on, you could see them playing more inspired. And then it gets to the 15-minute mark, it's a 10-point game. Gets to the 12-minute mark, it's a 5-point game. Gets to the 10-minute mark, it's tied. And then you had that much more game left where you continued to dominate. You end up winning by double digits against Nebraska, a red-hot Nebraska team. And then that leads to Sunday, which there was no lifelessness. There was no need for Illinois to wake up. They were wide awake for that entire game. It just so happened that Wisconsin played maybe their best game of the season. I mean, they were awesome to the point where as much as Wisconsin can bother me, I'm looking at Max Klesmit hitting big threes and thinking, I can't even hate the guy. The guy's a baller. He's making big threes. One of them right in Marcus Damask's eye with about a minute and a half to go. But it didn't matter, not for this Illinois team in that weekend. They got the win. They were down 10-plus points in every second half, and they won all 3 games. Now, would you prefer to not be down 10 points in each of those? Sure. But I will have stats in a little bit that show you were going up against a really odd assortment of red-hot teams with something to prove, and I think we would all agree, especially with Nebraska and Wisconsin, when those teams were on against you, they were on. Yes, there was frustration with Illinois' defense, as there has been much of this season, justifiably. But especially with that Wisconsin game, I didn't have so much of a problem with Illinois' defense. I just was pulling my hair out with every big shot that Wisconsin made, which seemed to continue on and on and on. But you countered, and then eventually you were just too much. Terrence Shannon Jr. was too much. Marcus Damask was too much. Your supporting cast really inspired basketball. Those 40 minutes against Wisconsin make me feel much better going into the tournament. And I understand that, the carryover effect or momentum, hey, that can evaporate really quick. It certainly did in 2021. But there are certain ways that I feel different going into this one. And I think that process, those 3 games and a process that unfolded in Minneapolis for this Illinois team, and by extension, this Illinois fan base that feels the weight of March failures on their shoulders, the way in which they won those games, culminating with a fantastic 40-minute performance, really top to bottom, I thought, on Sunday, against a Wisconsin team that would have beaten most teams that day. Why wouldn't you feel confident going forward? But before we even need to move forward, we need to celebrate what they did. They won a Big Ten tournament title. These are the things we're celebrating. When it became clear to me and Illinois was going to be able to run out the clock, and you can see it on the YouTube feed, you can hear it in the podcast, Isaac and I, and then the folks that were Poor Brothers with us, pure jubilation. This is what sports are all about. This is why we follow them, for moments like that. And we got one of those. We got, let's call it what it is. As a Illini basketball fan, these are all-time moments. Anytime you win a conference title or a conference tournament title or you make a run in the NCAA tournament, these are the all-time moments. These are the things that build up a legacy as a program. And I wouldn't pretend that Illinois is a blue blood. None of us would. But in the Big Ten, Illinois should mean something. And that leads me to my last point before we get to the break here. Brad Underwood has made Illinois mean something again. And yes, there are criticisms that can be levied against him as far as maybe in-game stubbornness sometimes. The lack of March success will still loom large until it doesn't. I mean NCAA tournament success, because he's won 2 Big Ten tournaments, okay? But most importantly to me, when that hire was made, and when any hire was made, whether it be John Gross or Bruce Weber, Bill Self before that, any hire, what you're really just asking them to do is, hey, give me something to cheer for, right? Give me NCAA tournaments. Make us compete for Big Ten titles. That's exactly what Brad Underwood has done. 2 Big Ten tournament titles. 1 regular season title, and as someone pointed out on Twitter Sunday, when I mentioned that 1 Big Ten regular season title, they gave the asterisk and said, well, really 2 if you think about it. And hey, you can make that argument because they were deserving of a share of that crown in 2021. Sorry, Michigan fans. enjoy rebuilding from scratch. What Brad Underwood has done in the midst of a changing college basketball landscape, what he has done in the midst of a very quickly changing Big Ten landscape is pretty impressive. Well, not pretty impressive. It's very impressive. And there's a lot of gratitude that I have as someone that has followed this program since I can remember. You know, it was a formative part of my youth with being a sports fan. And if you ask me, what do you want to see more than anything as a sports fan? It's an Illinois national title. That's it. I've seen the Yankees win the World Series, but I don't live in New York, so I'm not going to be able to share that with other people as much. I was in college when the Bears made the Super Bowl. That was a lot of fun, and that would be a lot of fun again. Illinois football winning an NCAA championship, it's not going to happen, and that's okay. But basketball, it could. And I don't know if this team's going to win a national title. It would take a lot, and I'm not even going to go so far as to make a prediction for that. I'm going to go on a one-game or maybe one weekend at a time thing at this point, not looking ahead to a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 or beyond. But what I do know is that Brad Underwood has gotten you to this point where you are relevant in the Big Ten each and every year. You're relevant nationally each and every year. Your down year is a 9 seed with early season wins against top 5 teams. I mean, every year has given you something, if not a tangible banner to hang, moments. And those accrue, and they become part of how you feel about the program as a whole. And right now, I feel as good about Illinois basketball as a whole as I have for 20 years now. It was a pretty painful 12 to 15-year stretch, right? But Brad Underwood fairly quickly has gotten this thing back on the right track. And yeah, we can look at a roster that's going to have a lot of upheaval and a lot of change, but would we really question his ability to go out and get guys again? And one last thought before we get to the sponsors. I remember when the NIL thing really kind of kicked into gear and we'd have transfers out and then we get transfers in. And I had said something to the effect of, you know, we're not going to be able to root for teams with the same vigor that we used to because we simply won't know the players as much. And there might be some truth to that even still. But it occurred to me today that I have, on the whole, had as much fun rooting for this team as most Illini teams that I can remember. And there's been frustrations, you bet. But I had frustrations when Frank was playing. I love Frank Williams. But Illini fans could pull their hair out with Frank Williams. Let's not forget that. But guess what? The guy won. And those frustrations in the moment pale in comparison to the glow that you feel for years afterwards based on their on-court success. This team got a tangible thing done. That's going in the rafters next year. And that's going to be celebrated, and that's going to be worth celebrating for a team that didn't quite get it done in the regular season, but went through a gauntlet in the Big Ten tournament. Yeah, it wasn't Purdue, but guess what? Purdue played like crap Saturday. It's a tournament. It happens. That doesn't make this Big Ten tournament title mean any less. You take any championship you can get. Brad Underwood so far has gotten 3 officially, and he could argue a 4th that should have been his for a shared title back in 2021. And for someone that inherited what he did, that's incredible. And hey, this weekend, whatever happens is going to happen. But it's not going to take away from the fact that Illinois basketball is in a good place. And yeah, I won't maybe remember that if things aren't going well on Thursday or potentially Saturday, right? I might not remember it in that moment. But what I'm going to try to do is remember that in the aftermath, no matter when this NCAA tournament run might end. I'm going to try to remember as quickly as I can, wait a second, we're in a good spot. And I do think that there's a chance that this team can double down here and give us some NCAA tournament success to only further solidify their case as one of the better Illini basketball teams. At 26 wins, they're already in that conversation. Now, March success could firmly place them way up there. And it all begins Thursday. So let the madness begin. The 200 level is brought to you by DP Dough, online at dpdough.com for all the best deals and prices. dpdough.com. Hopefully you have 6 celebratory calzones coming up in the month of March. And you can pick and choose from those 6 as each of these wins hopefully come for the Illini, or you can order a custom zone with any topping you want. That's dpdough.com. State Farm agent Brian Hansen, online at brianismyguy.com for life. Auto, home, business renters, you name it, Brian is my guy, and he can be your guy as well at brianismyguy.com. Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing. Give them a call at 217-841-4728. I know it's chillier this week, but the weather will be warming up again very soon. You want to get that AC checked before it gets too hot. And Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, they are our HVAC people. They can be yours as well. Give them a call at 217-841-4728. That's Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend at 217-841-4728. And finally, Owen Builders, online at owenbuildersllc.com for home additions, patios, decks. They got a great gallery online of all their excellent work. These are great craftsmen that know what they're doing. And also, they can get a free quote for whatever your next project may be. All you got to do is go online to owenbuildersllc.com. Hey, have to thank Poor Brothers. We had a great time on Sunday. You know, there's that superstitious, when we made it to Sunday, that superstitious part of you that thinks, wait, we've been in the garage, we're changing venues. Isaac and I are doing the second half. We're down 10. Oh, no. Is this not going to happen? Illinois quickly answered. I mean, that 10-point deficit was very short-lived, and it was a great spot to watch it. We had a big crew of folks come in during the second half of that game, and you could hear a bit of that Nat sound in the background as they were celebrating with us. So it was great. I love Poor Brothers. If you have not been before, if you're a beer person, or just, hey, they got a great liquor selection as well. My friend got an old-fashioned there. And I did not end up getting one, but I have had it before, and they make great cocktails as well. So you don't just need to be a beer guy. I'm not a beer guy, but I still love Poor Brothers. Also, Champagne Showers. You know, they are doing a bracket challenge, which I need to tweet out today. Yes, I do. But you can also find it at 217 Showers on Twitter. Great prizes involved with that. $300 will go to a charity of your choice, a local charity of your choice. And then the winner will also get a $150 gift card to local businesses. So that's something really cool going on with Champagne Showers. Justin, hello in the YouTube feed. Hello to the folks that are popping in. I just started this randomly after my run on this Tuesday afternoon. And for those that are in the YouTube feed, if you can subscribe, if you haven't already, to our channel and give us the old thumbs up, helps us out, and we appreciate it. I like Illinois' draw. I do. And I want to remind you how we felt about the last few draws. Okay, let's go down the old, not-so-yellow brick road. And remember these not-so-great selection Sundays. Starting with last year, you get a 9-seed versus 8-seed Arkansas. That was loaded with NBA talent. Not good. And I think we all probably felt one and done, right? We all truly did. In that game, fairly quickly, it was apparent that this Illinois team was not going to beat Arkansas. 2 years ago, Chattanooga, okay, well, we didn't figure it would be that close, but it was. And then there was Houston. Number 5 in KenPom, we got screwed. I know hindsight's 2020, but when Loyola's name came up in 2021, I did not feel good. I was thinking, please, God, let Georgia Tech win that game. Please, because I didn't want to deal with the storylines with it. I didn't want to deal with Sister Jean on my television. No offense to her, nice lady. But I didn't want to deal with it. And more than that, they were a team that was vastly underseeded based on their KenPom, right? So, listen, that happened. It didn't have to happen. And just because I didn't feel good about it on Selection Sunday, that doesn't make it okay that you lost the way you did. But I'll be honest, this is the first time in a while where Selection Sunday hasn't made me go, oh. First time in a while. I guess I'd have to go back to John Gross in 2013, and I mean, that was the gap between 2013 and 2021. But, you know, Miami as a 2 seed didn't scare you. You thought just get past 10 seed Colorado, and you did. That one didn't scare me. But there were other ones like Bruce Weber getting Kansas. You know, 8 or 9 seed Illinois smoked Lon Kruger and UNLV, and there was Bill Self in Kansas. Hooray. What fun. Can't wait for that. No, there's been many Selection Sundays where I don't feel good, and this was not one of them. And as I've kind of went into it, done some deep diving, some data-driven analytics here on the 200 level, I feel better about it. There is not going to be such a thing as an easy NCAA tournament game. And those that are, even if you win it by 12, 13 points, I don't think we should turn on the TV or wherever you're watching on Thursday and expect Illinois to just run roughshod over even a Morehead State, because this is the tournament and there are going to be tense moments in any game that you might play. Now, I'd love to think that on Thursday it's just easy peasy. And like, you get to halftime, you're up 20 points, but I don't see that necessarily happening. I do think it's a favorable matchup. And then there are the matchups that could happen if you make it past Thursday into Saturday. So what I wanted to do, because I understand why some Illini fans would look at this matchup and think, oh man, BYU should have been a 5 according to most people. We kind of got screwed in this. I don't know if that's the case. First off, let's just kind of set the stage. KenPom is a basketball metric kind of database that focuses on offensive and defensive efficiency. They were kind of the first and are still kind of the gold standard according to many. But there were some other ones. Bart Torvik, that's Torvik, has one as well. And then there's also Evan Maya. And these 3 websites are good for trying to really drill deep into the numbers and see just how good these teams are. And what they take into account are the quality of opponents that you've played and all of that as well. So overall, KenPom, the Bart Torviks, the Evan Mayas, they're pretty good predictors at what teams have a good chance to make runs, right? Well, according to KenPom, let's just start with the first weekend matchups. In Illinois' pod, the 4-team pod, Illinois is 10th overall on KenPom. That's where they finished for the regular season. They're the 3rd best offense in the country, according to KenPom, and the 93rd best defense. BYU, 16th on KenPom. 16th best offense. 11th best offense compared to Illinois' 3rd best. Defensively, they're about 48th, and they did play in a tough Big 12. Duquesne. Everyone's sleeping on Duquesne. 86 overall, 166 offensively, and 28 defensively. And then Morehead State sitting there at 111 overall with the 124th most efficient offense and the 120th most efficient defense. So about what you would expect from a team of their conference. Now, Bart Torvik, comparatively, has Illinois 12th overall instead of 10th. BYU 18th instead of 16th. Duquesne 75th instead of 86. Morehead State 134, fairly significant drop from their 111 on KenPom. And their offensive and defensive efficiencies aren't too different. Torvik doesn't like BYU's defense all that much. They're 59th instead of 48th. But that's really about the only clear difference there. But the cool thing about Bart Torvik's website, you can filter based on date. You can say, how was this team doing since, enter the date. And while the sample size is not the largest, take Illinois, for instance, there was Wisconsin, Purdue, Iowa, and then 3 Big Ten tournament games. So that's 6 games in March. And for some of these teams, it's anywhere between 5 and 6 games. Since March 1st on Bart Torvik, Illinois is 15th in the country, 6th offensively, 80th defensively. BYU is 25th, 25th offensively, 84th defensively. Duquesne, not far behind BYU, 29th since March 1st overall on Bart Torvik's website. That's only 4 spots underneath BYU. And while their offense is sitting there at 171, their defense is 10th best in the country since March 1st. Morehead State, 106 overall since March 1st. Basically, they haven't changed or went too far up from where they were before. Not much change for them. But I found this interesting. On Bart Torvik's website since March 1st, the 6th best team in the country was Ohio State. The 7th best team in the country was Nebraska. The 16th best team in the country compared to Illinois' 15th, Wisconsin. So the gauntlet that you run, if you want to use that word, maybe it's hyperbolic, I don't know, in the Big Ten tournament was against the 6th, the 7th, and the 16th best teams in the month of March in the country. And you took, I would argue, Wisconsin's best shot for 40 minutes, Nebraska's for 25, and Ohio State for about 20-25 as well. Like, you got good games from your opponents. You were able to overcome those and some of your own faults as well. I think in a way it was kind of a sneakily impressive march to the Big Ten tournament title for Illinois against teams that, compared to the other teams in your pod, are playing better than a BYU and certainly a Duquesne and a Morehead State. And also, for people that look at other possible 6 seeds, would you rather play Texas Tech, the team that just beat BYU by 14 points in a neutral site in their conference tournament, that according to Bart Torvik is like the number 6 or 7 team nationally. Or sorry, I think they're in the top 10 nationally on Bart Torvik since March 1st. Would you rather play Texas Tech? I wouldn't. Kind of surprised we didn't with the storyline potentially of Terrence Shannon Jr. having been there before he transferred here. You get BYU. Now, is it going to be easy if you happen to play them? No. I mean, they're pretty good. They're like Wisconsin. Are they as hot as Wisconsin right now? No, probably not. And then this is where it gets really interesting, I find. Bart Torvik allows you on his website to organize these metrics based on home games, away games, neutral site games, and then there's one that you can filter it out for away and neutral games combined. Now, I'm going to pull this up so you can see the records as well. I find this very, very interesting. Bart Torvik rankings. Sorry, everybody, so I get this pulled up here. I got some of these on my Google Doc, but I need to get some of these. Okay, here we go. And I'm doing this for the entire year, not just for March. Away and neutral combined. We have Illinois in this college basketball season, according to Bart Torvik, is the 5th best team in the nation, number 5, in the nation, in away and neutral site games. 11-5 record. The number 1 adjusted offensive efficiency. The number 1 offense in away and neutral games. 131 defensively, but not good, but remember, these are away games, so that will go down defensive metrics. When you're the number 1 offense, who cares? The 5th best team in the country away and neutral sites. BYU comparatively. You were 11-5 in away and neutral sites. They were 7-8. They were 3-9 in away games. That's 25th in the country, according to Torvik. They still had the 20th best offense. Their defense slipped to 70. That's where the 25 overall comes from. You also have Duquesne sitting there at 50th in away and neutral site games. You have Morehead State there at 133. All that is to say, Illinois has been pretty good away from the State Farm Center this year. And if I were to compare and contrast it with how they played at home, if I just did home games here, this is such a cool website. Home games, you have Illinois sitting there at 26. Go figure. 26. They were 15-3 at home. BYU, meanwhile, at home, was the 11th best team in the country. That's not to dismiss them, but it is to say they're a different beast away from Provo, Utah, than they are in neutral sites and away games. There's one other website that I thought was interesting. Evan Maya, that's M-I-Y-A, does his own metrics kind of based ranking system. He has Illinois as the 11th best team in the country with the 3rd best offense and 75th best defense. BYU is the number 17 overall team, 12th offensively, 34th defensively. Duquesne, 86th overall, and Morehead State 114. This is where it gets interesting. He has these sort of icons for teams that are on the rise or falling, and then he has one that only Illinois and a couple other teams had. It's a little firework emoji. Illinois was listed as volatile. Makes sense, right? We saw that in the Nebraska game. They had a volatile game. First half, really low. Second half, really high. Evan Meyer made note of that based on the metrics that he saw. BYU. They have a little emoji with a chart with a downward line. According to Evan Maya, this team has played worse in the second half of their schedule. That's BYU. They have struggled down the stretch compared to what they did in, let's say, December and January. Duquesne. Oh, arrows pointing up. This team is on a hot streak recently. Morehead State, they're just kind of chilling out there. They're anywhere Morehead State between the 110s and the 130s on any of these websites pretty consistently. I also thought of note, Evan Maya, sort of like how we saw on Bart Torvik's website, had Ohio State, Nebraska, and Wisconsin performing very well since March 1st. Evan Maya says Ohio State, Nebraska, and Wisconsin are all listed as hot. There's a little flame emoji next to those 3 teams. The 3 teams you just beat. And he doesn't give those out to too many. There's maybe 10 teams total with that hot streak listed by them. Why did I do this? Well, I was bored. 2, I'm looking for reassurance. Aren't we all? Aren't we looking for ways to feel good? But I was also looking, thirdly, for validation for Why do I not feel that bad about our draw? Why do I actually feel kind of optimistic about it? I haven't even mentioned yet that we're in Omaha, Nebraska. Duquesne comes from out east. BYU comes from out west. Morehead State, Kentucky, I think. And as with any of these games, if you get into a close one with Morehead State, guess what? Everyone in that stadium not wearing orange will be rooting against you. So there are those factors in a neutral site. But when push comes to shove, this is truly a neutral site. You wouldn't have to worry about until a possible Sweet 16 or, Elite 8 matchup against UConn in Boston about kind of playing more of an away neutral site game where most of the crowd is against you. And to me, those factors, along with the quick turnaround, which I actually think is advantageous, you played well from the second half against Nebraska on. I thought really well for those 3 halves, and then you don't need to wait too long to get back at it. Hopefully you stay fresh and, just enough rest, but not enough time for the rust to develop. You aren't playing at 11 a.m., you're playing at 2:10. You aren't playing on CBS, you're playing on True TV. All these things that have kind of, in years past, been little things that made you go, oh, I don't feel so good about that game. I'm not finding them in this pod. I'm not. And where there have been times in the past that I've tried to train myself out of thinking that things aren't going to go well, even though I know in my heart of hearts that maybe they don't go well. I try to sort of say, no, that's not going to happen to Illinois this time. We're going to break through. I don't feel like I'm having to really work for that this time. I feel like just what's in front of us right now, this weekend, the 2 potential games that Illinois will play, it seems pretty straightforward to me. Being a single elimination tournament, Illinois could lay an egg. And then what? Well, you could lose, and that would suck. But if they perform to the level that they're capable of, if Terrence Shannon Jr. and Marcus Damask are the 2 best players on the court, no matter if they play Duquesne or BYU on Saturday, if they beat Morehead State, I'm not scared. If we beat Morehead State when I wake up Saturday, it is going to be a different feeling than that Sunday before Loyola. And I don't know about you. I don't know if gut feelings really mean a whole hell of a lot. They probably don't. But I remember going on a run before that Loyola game and trying to do mental gymnastics into not worrying about it, and I couldn't. I couldn't shake that little thing in the back of my head that said, this might not go well. I'm running around campus and trying to soak in the pregame buzz because it was an 11 a.m. game, and I ran at like 9:30, and I didn't feel it. And I don't know if you were the same way or not. I didn't feel it from the jump, and the first 4 minutes of that game did nothing to make me feel better. I didn't think we were going to lose, but I didn't in my heart of hearts think, yeah, we got this, which is a funny thing to say as a 1 seed against an 8 seed. But that's where I was. Here is a 3 seed, which I've never experienced in my life. I've never experienced 3 seed Illinois in my life. Nice to be on the bottom side of the bracket for once. Just change it up a little bit. It just doesn't seem like the committee or circumstances or anything are really against you this first weekend. I'll worry about potential matchups against a red-hot Iowa State team or a red-hot UConn or Auburn team. I'll worry about that if we get to it. But as far as just the first task in front of you, which is what we circled at the very beginning of the year as the main goal, make the second weekend of the tournament, that's right there for you. And I think it's all in all pretty favorable. Yeah, I do those metrics to kind of make myself feel better, but I didn't feel bad in the first place. And these are only predictive metrics, and you got to play the games. But when it comes down to it, and you got a Terrence Shannon Jr. playing at his level, you think he's going to lay a stinker against one of these teams? No. Marcus Damask, where he might have struggled against maybe more of the athleticism of an Ohio State, that ain't going to happen here. And then your tertiary players, and I don't want to call Coleman that. Coleman's a key cog, and I thought he played pretty well in the Wisconsin game. I thought he was active despite not offensively being a huge impact. But some of your tertiary guys are starting to make plays too. Dane was huge in 2 of those 3 games. I thought Quincy was active all weekend. Yeah, he had some moments where you're thinking, oh, Quincy, what are you doing, man? But overall, Quincy was pretty good, right? Made some plays for you. Luke Goody, the ability to make the three. But most of all, Ty Rodgers. The emergence of Ty Rodgers in those 3 games. And, he might come out and score 4 points in the next game, but he's rebounding now. He had 40 rebounds in 4 games going into the Wisconsin game. And what did he have against Wisconsin? 13 or something like that? He is on some kind of tear, rebounding-wise. And, yeah, there's the foul trouble issue, but it depends on who he's guarding. I don't know if he's going to guard someone athletically as good as some of the ones he was against Wisconsin. Let me just make sure if he did get 13 rebounds against them. Ty. Oh, he only had 5. They all seem big, though, didn't it? I mean, whenever he gets a rebound, I wonder if it's sort of like my dad talking about Ephraim Winters back in the day. Is that how this guy rebounds? Listen, you guys are playing well. Justin's struggling. Yes, we know that. But your guys are playing pretty well. All right. That's my piece on this weekend. And I asked the folks on Twitter, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but first I'm going to get to some YouTube comments. I feel good. And I'm not going to predict this team to make a Final Four. I think if they were to make it out of this weekend, you're playing some elite teams. And you could get by an Iowa State, but a UConn's a UConn. And until proven otherwise, I just can't quite go that far. But this weekend, this 4-team pod, I mean, what are you scared of? Yeah, if a team goes red hot from 3, you can lose. But that would go for any opponent. I just think this is a good position. Just kind of line it up and go. Got a few things here. Justin, hey again. Good to see you, bud. From Brad. I have Illinois losing the second round. I can't pick them until they prove me different. I still think Underwood is the guy, though. Now, Brad, I understand the reluctance. And, yeah, I got to see it, too. It's weird, though, that isn't informing my feelings about this more. You would think that the second round flameouts would have me a little more concerned, but what I'm trying to do is, on one hand, it could sound like rationalizing. Well, Loyola was underseeded. Well, Houston was underseeded. Those things are both true. The Houston game, you weren't going to win, and that's one you can kind of live with because they were just a much better team than you were. The Loyola game, you were still a better team. You should have won that game, but you just didn't show up, and you never showed really any fight to come back. That was alarming, right? And that's what's informing this more than any other game. Informing it more than Houston, informing it more than Arkansas last year. In fact, in a lot of ways, to me, the Chattanooga game was more bothersome than any of those not named Loyola because you shouldn't have won the Chattanooga game. So I would be disingenuous to say that during the first half of the Nebraska game and the first couple minutes of that second half, that the existential dread of March past wasn't creeping back in. I'd be lying. And it would also be foolish to say, well, just because we figured it out against Nebraska and got a big win against Wisconsin, poof, we're going to be great in March. Brad, everything you said is justified until it's not, right? And I hope that they can prove you wrong. I do like the fact that unlike 2 years ago, where your best player was a Kofi Coburn, but we're talking like a traditional post guy, and some matchups you're going to be able to exploit that, and some you aren't. But man, sometimes I can't believe that Brad Underwood won the Big Ten with that 2022 team. They were good. They were top 20 in KenPom, but they weren't elite at any point that year. They were just a good team that snuck in a Big Ten title, which is, hey, I love that. This team does have a higher ceiling, but as we saw at times even this weekend, when they aren't clicking, it's not good. So if they come out and they do one more, and it's totally possible, you bet. They sort of sleepwalk their way through it. We'll see. What I'd like to think, Brad, is that the last 3 halves of basketball were a team and a program kind of shedding that albatross bit by bit, as difficult as that was, and doing so against 3 really red-hot teams that were all just kind of going balls to the wall, and thinking, okay, if the toughest thing that I have between the opening round in a Sweet 16 is a BYU team that really struggled away from Provo, then I'll take my chances with that and feel better than I have in any of the last 4 years of NCAA tournament matchups. And yeah, I'm including the Loyola season when you were 1 seed. I think that, BYU is not a top 10 KenPom team. BYU defensively isn't going to do anything so weird as to really just mess you up or mess up the flow. The tempo thing, they like to play a quick tempo. And then offensively, and this goes for Morehead State too, what do they like to do? They like to shoot the three. And you might think, well, that's not good because we've given up some threes. Yeah, that's true, but we do run a lot of guys off of the three-point line. What would concern me more is if any of these teams had a really stud big that you could match with some good shooting. And then they exploit our interior defense. Though I do think that with Dane Danger playing the way he is, I feel a little bit better about that. Okay, from David. First couple of games are reasonable, except for getting 5-seed BYU on the 6th line due to the Sunday game thing. David, let me address that real quick. And that's what I've seen. I don't know if that's confirmed, but it makes sense. They can't play on Sunday. Okay. Fine. We'll respect. We can respect that. That's fine. It's silly, I think, in this day and age, in what is essentially professional sports, that we would grant a religious exemption to any school that wants to be playing in a tournament like this. And lucky for that, what if the Final Four was ever moved to a Friday, Sunday? You just aren't going to play? Fine. To each their own. It does seem silly to me. Rest of the draw is tough with ISU, Auburn, and, of course, UConn. David, the top end of that bracket is, just Auburn and UConn alone. If I'm a UConn fan, I feel screwed. I won the title last year, and here's your Sweet 16 gift, Auburn? Come on. Not cool. Not cool at all. And if anything, Auburn should have been put in the South to go against a Houston team that got their bell rung against Iowa State. But instead, no, Auburn and UConn, you can book that for the Sweet 16, and UConn could lose. Also from David, not sure if they were jitters, but if they were, hopefully Marcus got them all out of his system after the first game and a half. Yeah, David, from the second half against Nebraska and then the entire Wisconsin game, Marcus was Marcus. He looked himself and just, it depends on matchups if teams are going to bother him like Wisconsin did. Not having seen BYU, I can't say whether their guards are defensively good enough to wreak havoc like that, but he turned the ball over 5 times against the Badgers, and that's concerning. But overall, though, he did look himself. Also from David, Ty rebounds with more ferocity than Ephraim did, more explosive. Well, that's pretty cool, and I just know this. It's fun to watch. Again, YouTube folks, thanks for tuning in on this Tuesday. Thursday's when the game starts. So just subscribe if you haven't already and hit that thumbs up button. Appreciate it. All right, so what I did today was threw up a poll in the listener mailbag to get your thoughts on this team. So the question that I asked was, going into March Madness, what makes you most confident and most concerned about this Illini team? So the good and the bad. And then I threw up a poll to just get some quick responses from those who didn't want to necessarily type something out. How far do you think Illinois will go in this tournament? Now, there are a couple options I didn't leave. I didn't lose in the first round because even though that is a possibility, well, guess what? In 2 days, we'd be able to talk about that miserable disappointment. So I figured, why even broach that? Yes, of course it could happen. It's the tournament. But you only get, I think, 4 options on these polls unless you're a premium member or verified on Elon Musk's Twitter platform. So I put round of 32, Sweet 16, Elite 8, and Final 4. All right, 9% of you think that Illinois will make it to the round of 32, but then lose. 44.4% think Illinois will make the Sweet 16 this year. 37% think Illinois will make the Elite 8. And damn near 10% of you think that Illinois will make the Final 4. Wow. Okay, so I am, if I had to respond in that poll, I would also say Sweet 16. For 2 reasons. One, I think Iowa State would be a tough matchup, presuming that would be who you play. But for another, that's all I'm keying on right now. Like, if we can have a podcast next Monday or Tuesday and preview a Sweet 16 matchup, oh my God. Well, first off, how amazing would that be? but I'm going to cross that bridge when we get there. It's not superstition, but I just, like, is it the old adage of trying to see the forest for the trees? Right now I'm just kind of trying to focus on the task at hand. And it is a it's a two-pronged task here. You got to get one done, and then you got to get the other. Because this is a 1 weekend at a time kind of thing. I know for the team it's going to be one game at a time, but for our purposes right now, it is this weekend. It is this whole weekend. Can you emerge on Saturday afternoon or evening as one of the Sweet 16 finalists? Now, the 44% of you that said Sweet 16, on Evan Maya's website, based on his efficiency metrics, Illinois has a 91.8% chance to make the round of 32. So 91% chance to beat, or basically 92% chance to beat Morehead State. Morehead State shoots a lot of threes. If they go red hot from that, then maybe it's like the Indiana game, where they only lost by 1. But against Alabama, Penn State, and Purdue, all the losses were between 25 and 30 points. Illinois has a 59% chance to make the Sweet 16, according to Evan Maya, based on his metrics. Comparatively, BYU has a 35.6% chance. Elite Eight, Illinois has a 30% chance, compared to, let's say, Iowa State's 43%. According to Evan Maya, Illinois has a 9.8% chance to make the Final Four. 9.8% of you in the poll responded, Final Four. You agree with the metrics. So the breakdown here was eerily similar to what you see on this poll. Eerily similar, except a lot of you, between the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight, you had 37% say Elite Eight compared to the 30% chance that Evan Maya gives you. If we were to take that 7% over to Sweet 16, then it'd be pretty even, Steven. But regardless, you're all feeling pretty good, and I'm feeling good. I'm just not going to go so far as to say Elite Eight, let alone Final Four. But Sweet 16, yeah, I think it's good there. Also, one other thing too, I think Duquesne wins. So I watched a little bit of their game against VCU on Sunday, and they are just that typical A10, tough as nails, gritty group that just slow you down and make you work for it. And if BYU isn't making threes at a high clip, Duquesne's going to hang. And I just think that's kind of a safer upset pick. When you look at others, I don't think Texas Tech is losing. I don't think Clemson, another 6 seed, I don't think they're losing. I think for 6-11 games, this is one that you could look at. Duquesne's offense is not good. But BYU's offense away from Provo is okay. And Duquesne has been playing top 10 defense in the month of March. And, coming off a conference tournament, feeling good, and then that underdog thing, and just, I don't know, something about East Coast teams, West Coast teams. You got a very wide divergence of styles, and I think it'll be a really weird game, and it's going to be one of the first ones on Thursday. But I'm watching that and thinking, I don't know. Why not? And if I were to choose between the two, yes, I would, of course, still rather play Duquesne if we get there than a BYU. But even that, I wouldn't go into Duquesne thinking, this is easy. Like, they will probably do some gritty East Coast A10 kind of stuff. That league, for whatever reason, seems to churn out just tough teams. Maybe it's the Philadelphia, New York, East Coast thing. I don't know. It just kind of trickles into how you view them. But I'm actually on my bracket, I'm going to put Duquesne over BYU. And that's not out of wishful thinking. It's not, I'm hoping this into existence. Come on, please, Duquesne. Yeah, it'd be nice. But in a bracket where you got to pick, so many upsets to try to, move up a little bit, I'm picking Duquesne. I don't even know what their nickname is. I was about to say Go Flyers, but that's Dayton. Now, the Duquesne what? I don't even know. But they are an upset pick for me. I think they're going to beat BYU. All right, here are some of the responses that you guys had when I asked confidence, concern, where are you at? From Jacob. Confident. This team has shown, actually, Jacob, I'm going to get, yes. This team has shown no panic and has been clutch. Concerned. Can we keep the edge we had from the Big Ten tournament? To me, Jacob, the concern is more with the mental component because the aloofness or the lethargic nature of some of those early parts of the Big Ten tournament, I didn't get it. It's kind of funny because after Saturday in the first half, I had tweeted out when we were down a lot, I tweeted out clearly one team wants this more. I thought it was pretty clear watching the game in the first half who wanted it more. Well, of course, Illinois won. I was ecstatic. I think most Illini fans were. And this whole gotcha thing, it's so predictable on Twitter. Someone said, oof. Like, oh, bad take, Carp. It was a take in the moment. You know this thing about fans, you react to what you're seeing? Yeah. So I reacted to us losing by double digits to Nebraska and not looking good at all. And the metaphor that I gave this person was, if I tweeted out at noon, if I observed that it was raining, and then at 1 p.m. it's sunny, are you going to reply to me at 1 p.m. and say, oof? I merely observed that Illinois sucked in the first half against Nebraska, and that they didn't really look like they even wanted to be there, other than Terrence and Luke. Come on, that's a fair thing to make. So the predictable, gotcha, give me a break. Get out of here, you people. From Ethan. Mike, you forgot national championship. This is our year. The path will open, and we will win it all. I have no concerns. I'm confident that every member of this team has that dog in him and that everything is coming together at the right time. Just y'all wait. Well, Ethan, if that is true, I'm going to eat a hat. All these years, me and Trevor and Harry and Lon have joked about eating a hat. I'll eat a hat if this happens. I will put a hat in my smoker, smother it with barbecue sauce, and I'll find some way to eat some of that hat. And I would do it so gladly if Illinois won a national title. Ethan, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, there's not a single sports thing that could come close to me as far as Illinois winning a national title. That's it. I would not ask for anything more in my sports fandom, in my life. That's how meaningful that would be. From Zach, confident you'll have the 2, and then parentheses 3, best players on the court pretty much the whole tournament. Has talked me into this team making the Final Four. Concerned, could say the same thing about the 2021 team. The defense, of course. Need 2 of Guerrier, Harmon, Goody to be locked in. Zach, I'm glad that you mentioned the 3 in parentheses. Don't sleep on Coleman. If he's good Coleman, and other than Ohio State, which I don't know what the heck that was about, though he did come up big late. He's mostly been good Coleman this year. So if you get good, engage Coleman, and when he made a 3 early against Wisconsin, I was like, phew, okay, Coleman's here today. Even if he doesn't score much more, Coleman is in the building. Zach, I would agree in many matchups, yes, you might have the 3 best. From Chase, natty or bust, I don't care. Chase and Ethan, I love your energy. I mean, if it happens, you don't understand. Like, I'm just going to do a month's worth of pod. I'll just come down here once a day, do a little 10-minute pod, just telling you all how much I love you and how happy I am and just life is good. I'm just going to it's going to just be daily affirmations. 200 level is just going to turn to day after day in April. I love you. You guys are the best. Life is good. Illinois basketball is so awesome. I just love everything. I do it. Darn it. From David, I'm cautiously optimistic that this is the year we finally break the Sweet 16 drought, and I think there's a great potential for an Elite 8 or even Final 4 run. That being said, defense is still a worry, and being burned before until I see it happen, I won't predict getting to the second weekend. All fair, David. It's the holding 2 truths, right? There is the reason to be optimistic, but there is the fact as Illini fans, we have been burned before. So that's fair. From Teddy, Elite 8, confident offense, concerned defense. Illinois is elite in transition. I do get concerned when we don't move in the half court and run ISO plays, booty ball, but it has been working. Defensively, we get pounded inside no matter who is there. Also, transition D is bad. It is oddly not great. So, Teddy, good points there. From Brian, confident. Offense is multidimensional and one of the best in the country. Plus, we have a superstar that could go on a Kemba-like run. Concern, I like Kemba Walker. Good comp. Concern, the recent lack of intensity that has led to double-digit deficits in the early second half wake-up timeouts. I hope we're done with that. The Wisconsin game, you didn't have to do that, right? Yeah, they went up 10. I didn't get the same feeling in the Wisconsin game, though, that it was sleepwalking. I just thought, God dang, Wisconsin came out and blitzed you right away. From Zach, my optimistic take on the draw is we seem to play to our competition. I think we'll really get up for games like we did on Sunday. Also, with BYU shooting a lot of threes, we're going to get long rebounds and runouts in transition, which is our strength, Elite 8. Zach, I do think that's something there. BYU, our transition doesn't always have to require the traditional transition offense. As long as Terrence gets a little bit of a leg up, there could be 3 defenders on the other end, and he will sneak his way past them. So I do think that those long rebounds give Illinois the opportunity for that. And I think certainly you're going to clean up on the boards. We're talking about a 5-out offense if you do play BYU, and that means offensive rebounding is not a primary concern of theirs. From Zach. Oh, wait, I read Zach's. This is from C. Vance. If TSJ stays aggressive and everyone else fills their roles like they did this past weekend, I believe they can definitely get to the Sweet 16 and probably Elite 8, but have to stay hungry and assertive every possession, which I thought they did for the most part Sunday. C. Vance, well done. From Bob. Elite 8, feeling confident because of how well this team can score. We saw over the weekend how quickly double-digit deficits could be evaporated. Previous teams would get down 8+ and it would feel impossible. I'm nervous pretty much solely because of our recent March struggles. Bob, good take there. This is from David, who's also in the house in the YouTube feed. And Mark, I see yours here. Shoot, where's my Twitter? There it goes. Oh, no, I just closed out of it. Well, as I open that back up, Mark, I'm going to read yours in the YouTube feed. Morehead State needs to try to assault us a la Penn State. We tend to fold like a lawn chair when bullied. Hopefully Brad has a plan for that and not getting slowed down. You're right. There is the Penn State thing, and that was one of the worst games of the year, especially the collapse at the end of it. I think it's just that they're more reliant on the 3. I don't know what kind of team they are as far as getting to the hoop. And as I look at this, I want to make sure that I get this right, Mark. To me, I'm looking at free throws. In Illinois, by the way, free throw attempts compared to field goal attempts. So 37.8% of their points are coming from free throws, it looks like, for Illinois. Is that right? No. Sorry. I need to make sure I'm reading this correctly. For every 100, I don't know. Let's just say this. They shoot a lot of free throws, okay? And then they don't foul a lot, so their opponents are not shooting a lot of free throws themselves. I'm pretty sure that this means for every 100 points, for every 100 field goals attempted, you're attempting 37.8 free throws. Would that be right? Either way, as I was looking at Morehead State and BYU, one thing that they don't do a lot of is get to the free throw line. So, and one thing they do a lot of is get the other team gets to the free throw line. So, think about this weekend. I mean, Terrence went 38 for 44 from the line. That could happen again in these 2 games. All right, so back to the thoughts here. Sorry, I closed this out. David had mentioned most confident in the fact that this team has no give up in them. Against Loyola, Houston, Arkansas, they seem to accept their fate. That's probably just projection on my part, but that's how it felt. Concern, outside shooting. It's been too streaky lately, and of course the defense. From Hokie Duke, biggest concern is the slow start getting down double digits, as well as quick fouls on TSJ driving to the hoop, and Coleman with the steals. I'm still paranoid due to the 2005 championship with Augustine. Yeah, I think the quick fouls, I've thought about that too, Hokie Duke, and foul trouble would always play a role in a March Madness game. If you get an early charge on Terrence, then I'll think, uh-oh, because then he's got to be a little more careful. From Gene, concerns, not good defensively, not locked in for 40 minutes, go through lulls on offensive and defense. Free throws, coaches take time to adjust, and March Madness doesn't offer that time. Turnovers, the concern from day one, lack of a true point guard. Tourney history says that a point guard is key. That's all fair, Gene. From Noah, if you don't make it to the Sweet 16 with this draw, I don't know what to tell you. This is their year. Noah, I don't disagree with you. It's right there. Let's not overthink this. This is a draw that they got 2 games they can win, whatever those 2 games may be. Jerry replied to Noah just saying, Sweet 16 or bust. Anything else is just gravy. And Jerry, to an extent, yeah, like if you got a Big Ten tournament title and you got a Sweet 16 trip, that season is an unqualified success. There's nothing more you would need to necessarily add. Now, of course, you get to that game the following week and you want to win it. And if you didn't win it, you'd be disappointed, and that's sports. But in the grand scheme of things, you couple a Big Ten tournament title and a Sweet 16 run, that's a really good year. One more from Gene, though. He had concerns, but this is confidence. Lots of things to be confident about. Talent, depth, size, experience. More scoring options than any other team in the country. Not 1, but 2 alpha dogs in Terrence Shannon Jr. and Marcus. Other teams don't have a Coleman Hawkins. Lots of guys' college careers are over. And Gene also mentions rebounding, especially on the offensive side of the ball. All these good points. I appreciate the replies from you guys. So here we are. This is it, right? As we wrap up this podcast, it is NCAA tournament time. And I feel like let's just go do it, There'll be moments of nerves. There'll be a stretch against Morehead State where we're like, is everything okay? The jitters will probably emerge again. But I don't know if it's just by choice, but just call it gut, call it, the analytics that I dug up today. I feel pretty good about where Illinois is at. It gave you a pretty good shot to make the Sweet 16. And now it's just a matter of doing it. And if you want to take solace in anything, there have been times in the past few years where you had the best player on the court, Kofi Coburn, right? But Kofi Coburn at no point in his career was as explosive as a Terrence Shannon Jr. And Kofi Coburn, like most postmen, there are ways that you can defend that. You can say, we're going to double team you and force the other guys to make shots, to make jump shots. And those teams didn't do it. Well, if Terrence isn't getting his groove on completely, then you got Marcus Damask, who gets high percentage shots. And this team on a whole gets high percentage shots in a way that previous Illinois teams have not. The primary difference between this and previous Illinois teams, they got an offense that can score a lot of points. And yes, the Io and Kofi teams' offensive efficiency was really high when they won the tournament, but it was still predicated on making the three. We saw this last weekend. Illinois didn't have to make a ton of threes in order to win a Big Ten tournament title against three teams that were red hot. All that leads me to believe that whether you play Duquesne or BYU, if you get past Morehead State, you should feel good about your chances to get to the Sweet 16 this year. I certainly do. And we're going to be there as long as this goes on, and I hope it goes on for a long time. We'll be in the garage on Thursday. I will be back in time to do the second half pod from school. And I'll just have to be kind of stealthily following along at school. And then we'll be ready to go with Isaac and I. And then I think my buddy Kenton will be there to do some stats, just like he did for the Missouri game back when we did a garage pod before Christmas. And I hope we do a lot of garage pods in the next few weeks. Wouldn't that be something? I've had a lot of fun with this team. And there's been frustrations along the way, but what a rewarding Big Ten tournament title. And hope springs eternal, and for good reason. I feel at a very good place with Illinois basketball. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to you if you're listening to a podcast like this. And it's the kind of thing that really kind of ties you to your community and to the university and to your family and the people that you grew up watching it with, to the friends that you send texts to and text threads. And man, can you believe that? And I got friends sending me pictures of the Illini swag that they're wearing. And just the pride that comes along with these wins. It's sports. I know it's silly. But you know what? It's fun, and it means something. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. So if this team can make a Sweet 16, boy, oh boy, are we going to have fun. I mean, and I'm going to have fun watching these games regardless, because it's the NCAA tournament, and my team is in it, and Brad Underwood's teams make NCAA tournaments. And we know what the next step is now. Do they make that step this year? I'm confident that they do. And if so, that's going to feel really, really good. And you know what? Illini fans, we can be jerks. Every fan base can. We're a particularly surly bunch. We had a lot of pent-up frustration. But you know what? Doggone it, we deserve it. And I think we'll get that. So, hey, it starts on Thursday. Garage Pod at about 3:15. And we hopefully will be camped out there for much of the rest of the month. Are you ready? I'm ready for this. I'm feeling good, and I hope you are too. And if you're nervous, that's okay. If you're doubtful or skeptical, that's understandable. But now it's just time to play the games and see what the hell happens. Got to thank DP Dough. Online at dpdough.com for all the best deals and prices. dpdough.com. State Farm agent Brian Hansen. Online at brianismyguy.com. Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing. Get your AC check scheduled by calling them at 217-841-4728. That's Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend. And finally, Owen Builders LLC, online at owenbuildersllc.com. For home additions, patios, decks, you name it, Luke and his staff are great at what they do. That's owenbuildersllc.com. Got to thank Poor Brothers for hosting us on Sunday. That's a great place to watch games. They got TVs at the bar, in the main room. They got TV right above the skee ball table. Great selection of craft brews and a huge selection of liquor. Top shelf stuff as well. It's the best spot in Champaign to get a drink and a great spot to watch the game, as we found out on Sunday. So don't forget about them. And, of course, Boswell and the folks over at Champaign Showers. We appreciate their partnership over the years. We appreciate you. And the listener, the viewer, whatever you may be. For the viewers, if you can subscribe on YouTube on your way out, give us the old thumbs up. That helps us as well. And I guess all that's left to say is we'll see you Thursday as Illinois plays in the NCAA tournament against Morehead State. We'll be live from the garage, hopefully to react during an Illini victory. Let the madness begin. It is the 200 level. All right, thanks, YouTube. On your way out, again, like, subscribe if you can, and we will see you Thursday from the garage. Let's get it done. Let's make that Sweet 16 and maybe beyond. See you, everybody.